Welcome to Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum sponsored by Capital Community TV and the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk counties. My name is Diana Bodker, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization that works to educate ourselves and the public about governmental issues. We do not support candidates, but provide a forum for them to become known in our communities. In this program, we will present the candidates for the Ward 8 Salem City Council. They are, alphabetically, Mr. Jim Lewis and Mr. Christopher Proudfoot. Our format for this forum is as follows. Each candidate has 3 minutes to give an opening statement outlining his biography and background and his top 3 priorities if elected. Following that, each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer questions that have been prepared by the League on current issues. The candidates were not given the questions ahead of time. At the end, the candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement in which to state the legacy they would like to have if elected to the office. Prior to this, we drew for seating and question orders, so we will begin with Mr. Jim Lewis, a candidate A, for a 3-minute opening remarks.
First, let me thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this candidates forum. My name is Jim Lewis, and I'm running for City Council Ward 8 position. I'm running for City Council for basically 3 reasons. I believe we need to keep Salem moving forward, using the common sense that I have noticed predominant in the city of Salem over the 14 years I have lived here, being smart about growth. We need to keep Salem moving forward when it comes to filling the Mill Creek Industrial Park. In doing that, we can go a long way to filling the budget problems that the city may be facing in the years to come. We need to keep moving forward when it comes specifically to West Salem and implementing the Neighborhood Center Mixed Use Center, something that we have talked about, we have planned, we have implemented. We haven't implemented it yet. We need to implement it. But we have passed the ordinance. We have a willing property owner, at least was willing, and it's something that we need to implement, especially in West Salem. And yes, we need to embrace the Salem alternative and the next Willamette River crossing, a crossing that is needed to move goods, services, and people through and into our community. Secondly, I have a wide diversity of volunteer experience over the past 35 years. I've spent 10 years on the City of Salem's Planning Commission as its president in 2011 through 2013. I have served over 10 years as a CASA volunteer, court-appointed special advocate. I have served over 3 years on the Downtown Advisory Board. And I co-chaired the Streets and Bridges bond measure that passed in 2008, where the citizens of Salem agreed to pay almost $100 million to improve the streets and bridges throughout the city of Salem. Finally, since 1961, when I heard President Kennedy say in his inaugural address, ask not what you can do for your country, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Through today, in my work with the Salem Association of Realtors, which in its Realtor Pledge it includes, serve well your community and through it your country. I felt it was my responsibility to serve my community and to serve it continually. And that is what I want to do as a member of the City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Proudfoot, your opening remarks.
First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this chance. My name is Christopher Proudfoot, and I am running for Salem City Council Ward 8. I grew up here in Salem. I went to school here, and I got my first job here. Salem is my home, and I want to see Salem succeed and grow into the city that I know it can be. I was raised in a family that appreciated and encouraged involvement in my community. Growing up, it was not uncommon to spend weekends at an animal shelter or helping with an event or a cause for a nonprofit. I have been active in a number of nonprofit organizations, including organizations like Pride Northwest and several political party groups throughout the state. I have been a precinct committee person and a former county party chairman of the Polk County Democrats in Polk County. I support and encourage community involvement, and I have a commitment to serve, and I want to give back to my community. I am running because I believe Salem has come a long way, but we still have a lot more work to do, and we can do better. Job growth is happening in Salem, and that's a good thing. We should celebrate that. However, most of these new jobs in the last year have paid less than $15 an hour. 40% of these jobs require no degree or no training. Salem needs job growth that encourages living wage jobs and requires education and skills to have a 21st century economy. Our city government needs to be open and transparent in its process. Too often are decisions made and issues discussed with little involvement or discussion with local communities of interest that are directly affected. Transparency in government is more than just posting results of votes on websites or message boards. We should be involving people in the process and asking for input from communities of interest. As an LGBT candidate, I know the difference between being invited to the table and having to fight for the chance to speak at the table. We need a more involving process in Salem government. I believe that Salem can set high goals for sustainability and meet that goal through collaboration and cooperation between existing people, industry, and ecology here in Salem. No one solution is going to get us there, nor one group encourage that we find a solution to meet our future needs, and our future need to protect our environment. I believe in Salem, and I know together we can and will succeed. Thank you very much.
Mr. Proudfoot, what community volunteer groups would you utilize and for what projects?
I think specific to volunteer groups. The Neighborhood Association in West Salem is a critical part of the West Salem neighborhood. There are people there that have a vested interest in what is going on in our community, and they are a terrific resource to be able to reach out to and discuss their views and interests. But additionally, I think that there are local organizations within the city, especially around people of color, LGBT, women's organizations that provide a valuable part of the conversation that should be included.
Mr. Lewis.
I certainly would contact and utilize the organization, the West Salem Neighborhood Association. They are the spokes organization for West Salem. But I have to say that working with the Salem Association of Realtors, I would also reach out to the realtors. They are known to be community organizers. They have done things like annual food drive for over 25 years. They have done a children's Christmas party for the most needy children in the community for over 25 years. And the realtors have, for over 10 years, worked with the Salem Community Fund, giving back almost $90,000 in grants to local charities through their efforts in the community. So I would work also with the realtors.
All right. Mr. Lewis, what kinds of issues come before a city council person, and which will be the most challenging for you?
It runs the gamut from budget issues to land use issues to issues of social issues. And I think the social issues are the ones that are the most difficult to handle, especially when a city runs short of funds, like the city of Salem is in jeopardy of doing. The first responsibility of a city government, of any government, is safety for its citizens. After that, it is things like infrastructure. When it runs short of funds, it runs short of being able to help in things like homelessness and community and social aspects. And so those are the things that are the toughest to deal with, especially when the budgetary monies are short. So those are when you need to reach out to organizations such as the neighborhood associations, such as the realtors, such as the churches and the local neighborhood things. Those are the ones that you need to have the help with the social aspects of life. If government and when government cannot support that.
Mr. Proudfoot.
I think Salem City Council in general has a unique opportunity. There are very large issues that affect the city as a whole, things like budget, land use, zoning and downtown, transportation, education. These are our issues that address concerns that most people have in this city and are definitely a strong part of the work that Salem City Council does. I think the other part is just general neighbor-to-neighbor relations. I was at city government city council just a couple of weeks ago, and someone was having a concern about a bright light in their neighbor's yard facing into their house. I mean, there aren't special groups or interest communities or other people that you can bring in and develop a collaborative working solution to the problem. That's something that we just have to find a way to allow our neighborhoods to get along, to work together, to find a solution that we can both work with and understand the future implications of those decisions.
Thank you. Mr. Proudfoot, what, if any, concerns do you have about our current parking plan?
I think parking is a terrific question. Thank you. Parking in downtown Salem has gone through a variety of trial and errors and attempts to try to find a resolution. I was meeting recently with some business owners in downtown Salem, and they expressed a lot of concern that they've been wanting to come to the table and work with city government to find a solution to parking, but they haven't felt like that opportunity has presented itself. So parking in downtown Salem, I think we have a ways to go. I think there have been solutions brought to the table that have been maybe dipped into or used in other places, and we need to go back to what our original agreement was for parking and start from there, working with people that are living down there, people that are working down there, and people that come down for the business and industry, while also making sure that we are addressing the financial concerns that we have.
Mr. Lewis.
The parking issue in downtown Salem is very difficult, and it will always be difficult. Salem has reached a point, in my opinion, where to have free parking is probably not the option, not the best option. Downtown Salem is such a unique area that people are, in my opinion, and should be, willing to pay some for the parking. We need to be creative about it. We need to use the highest level of technology, such as they have in the city of Portland. And you can adjust those parking meters where you can come down for your coffee in the morning and have free parking, but yet you can come down at 10 o'clock and have to pay for parking. The issue with free parking, and the issue that we face today, is the abuse of the free parking by downtown employees. Until that issue is resolved, there's going to be a problem with parking in downtown Salem.
All right. Mr. Lewis, what are your views on the current discussion about infrastructure upgrades or alterations?
One of the things that are the responsibility of government is infrastructure. And I believe that with the passage of the bond measure in 2008, which I co-chaired that campaign, that brought almost, not quite, $99.8 million into fixing the streets and the bridges in Salem. They're being done right now. I think that those improvements have gone a long way to improving the infrastructure. I think that it's also important that as we grow and we build and build out, that the system development charges should pay for some of that infrastructure also. And I think that is being done. I think that growth is paying its way, and I think that we should continue to have the payment from the citizens as we need to have improvements of the existing infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Mr. Proudfoot.
I think that we do need to be working on infrastructure growth here in Salem. In order for Salem to continue forward on building a home and a community and a city where people are encouraged to come, settle down, start a family, and be able to live and grow, we need to be making sure that we are meeting up our end of the bargain from the government standpoint, that we are fixing the streets, that we are addressing the sidewalks, that we are addressing the roads, in general support structure that needs to be in place to encourage families to stay here, to remain here. We have to have clean parks. We have to have clean streets, free of potholes, and sidewalks clear of rocks, which is something that's actually kind of an issue in West Salem right now. I almost tripped the other day. We need to be making sure that this is a part of our future plan. In addressing it, there are financial structures in place that I think, making sure that we're not dipping into them for other resources should be able to accommodate the needs that we have. And future conversation, I think, should involve the public to make sure that everyone is on board with what we need to do to move Salem forward.
All right. Mr. Proudfoot, what role, if any, does public opinion play in the decisions councilpersons make?
Well, I think the public opinion is kind of an important part of what city government does, what any elected official does. If you're making decisions without input or advice or involvement from the people that you represent, then you should reevaluate why you're in government. Public involvement and public opinion should be addressed when appropriate. There are times when we simply can't reach out to everyone that we need to and a decision needs to be made. Sometimes a deadline comes up that we don't have specific control over, but we should be taking that back to the people to make sure they understand the decisions that were made. With large projects, we should consider putting it to the voters. They have a stake in it. They have a future stake in it. Not everyone on City Council will be the same people when the bridge starts and when it ends, and we need to involve the public in that process to make sure that they are on board.
Mr. Lewis.
When Senate Bill 100 was passed in the 1970s, the number one goal one, was public involvement. It was crucial then, and it is more crucial now. What I see as more important and needed now is for the citizens of Salem, of any city, to recognize their individual responsibility to be involved. I go back to the statement that President Kennedy made, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do. I think we take that responsibility too lightly today. When I moved to Salem 14 years ago, I did not find it hard to be involved. I simply got involved. And I think that it is important for each and every one of us to recognize that it is a responsibility of each and every one of us to be involved. If we take that responsibility seriously, we'll be involved. And if we are, we will have a good, rounded community with lots of involvement.
Mr. Lewis, what is your assessment of the workload and funding levels for the city?
Right now, the city seems to have a balanced budget that it is what I would call limping along. There is concerns for the future. As revenues dwindle, there is concern that we will not be able to keep up with the expenses of the city. Thus, the responsibility, in my opinion, of the need to keep Salem moving forward. Mill Creek Industrial Park especially represents a gold mine. It is sitting there virtually vacant and has been vacant for a number of years. Just imagine if we could fill that industrial park with good family wage jobs, the tax revenue that that could represent to fill those budget vacancies. We have another one coming up that we'll be talking about, hopefully, and moving on, and that is the 47 acres that was formerly known as the North Campus block of the Oregon State Hospital. If we can spend some time planning that, but then working on the development of it, again, we can bring jobs, we can bring development, we can bring tax revenue to the city to help with the budgetary issues. That's what I'm saying that Salem needs. We need to keep moving forward.
Mr. Proudfoot.
I think I agree with Mr. Lewis that the budget is currently in a state where we have managed to meet our obligation and we have balanced a budget. The future is not looking all that idealistic and hopeful in future budgets. That we're already projecting that there's going to be some shortcomings that we need to reevaluate and consider our resources. Right now we are limping along, but we are not at a place where we really need to be. We need to be, our schools need to be better funded, more resources available, making sure that our students are graduating. Our homeless population needs to be addressed. We don't provide very many services to our homeless population, and we need to find a way to bring that in. We may be balancing a budget right now, but we are missing some communities and people that are directly affected. The future of our financial system here in Salem, we do need to be looking at alternative means of addressing that. The fire station recently we had to make some closes in some fire station. Taking an example of elsewhere in the state, which we should be doing on a regular basis, Clackamas County has been able to do a lot with a little, reaching out for grants, taking advantage of every opportunity that has come available, and making sure that we are able to provide essential, or that they are able to provide essential services in specifically the fire department area. That's what Salem needs to be looking at. We need to be looking at examples to where we can do as good a job.
Mr. Proudfoot, what environmental concerns do you think the city should address?
I think that we have some wonderful parkland and preservation area. Minto Brown Park, specifically as an animal refuge, as a great opportunity to connect with the environment and the ecology of the city that hasn't been developed or hasn't been terribly involved with the people process. We need to be protecting that. We need to make sure that our future plans address those. Our boundaries and city boundaries and urban growth boundaries get right up next to some very valuable agricultural land, but also some protected environmental area that we need to be making sure that we're protecting. So those considerations need to be in place when making future decisions around expansion and growth in the city, but also what we have in our city needs to be focused on to make sure that we are preserving it for future generations.
Mr. Lewis.
I'm proud of the the performance of the city of Salem when it comes to environmental issues. I recognize that we could always do more, as we could do more in other cities and other countries. Salem is very environmentally conscious. Since I've come here, we have purchased the former railroad bridge, and now it's a pedestrian bridge. We are in the process of doing the footbridge to Minto Island. We are going to have a gold mine when it comes to the walking and pedestrian accessibility, and even the bike lanes that are being put in Salem. It's one of the nation's bike-friendly cities. And so I think Salem gets good grades in my mind for how environmentally conscious it is. It could certainly do more. We could always do more. But when you look at it, especially compared to some other cities, I think we do extremely well.
All right, your closing remarks, Mr. Proudfoot.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here today. I do just want to say that one of the reasons that I decided to run for office, I believe in involvement and inclusion in the community. I believe that government should be a representation of the people that are within the city, the city in this case, and that we should be doing better to encourage people to get involved both locally and other issues around the state. But here in Salem, I grew up in a family, of course, that cared deeply about public involvement, and I wanted to give back to my community. The way that presented itself that I thought I could do quite well in was running for office. I have been absolutely thrilled with the support that I have gotten from people all around the state, and it truly does speak to some of the work that I have done, some of the people that I have been involved with, and organizations throughout my time since graduating high school, really. I have received endorsements from Congressman Kurt Schrader, Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum, Labor Commissioner Brad Avakian, Salem City Councilor Diana Dickey, SEIU, UFCW, IBEW, the Teamsters, a variety of local labor organizations, the Oregon League of Conservation Voters, and finally the National Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund. There's a diverse amount of resources and support that have been helping me along in this process, and I do just want to say thank you. And this is a true example of people supporting people throughout the state to make sure that we as a whole are able to do what we need to do to move into the future.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I recognize that I have mentioned several things today that really surround growth, especially when you consider the Mill Creek Industrial Park and the third bridge, which unfortunately we didn't get a chance to talk more about. And I recognize that growth for some can be pretty frightening, and I want folks to know that I understand that. I understand how concerning and frightful growth can be. And from a personal standpoint, let me explain it this way. My wife and I's daughter could not wait to move out of our home when she was 18 years old, and so when she graduated from West Salem High School, she and some of her friends did just that. They moved out. They moved into an apartment, and it lasted about a year, and then she moved home. Since then, she has went to a medical trade school, has gotten a job, and she's doing very well for herself. She'll be 23 years old next week, and she's talking about moving out again. And we really don't want her to. It's safe at home. We're comfortable with her there. But we recognize that it's her time to grow. It's her time to fly. I personally think that this is Salem's time to fly. And I want to make sure that we keep moving Salem forward and nothing gets in her way. Thank you.
That is all the time we have. You have been watching Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum for Ward 8 Salem City Council. We appreciate our candidates sharing their time with us. We hope you will watch our other candidate forums, and please see CCTV website for time and dates. These forums are a public service to voters to become more acquainted with candidates who hope to lead our city, county, and state government in the coming years. Ballots will be mailed on May the 1st and must be returned by May the 20th. We urge you to exercise your right to vote. This is Diana Bodker from the League of Women Voters and CCTV. Thank you for watching Your Vote Counts.